throughout Western societies, I suppose what you might call an epidemic of disbelief of
Yeah.
refugees. In the UK at the moment, we have a particularly grotesque bill going through Parliament,
Yeah.
which will empower the Home Secretary to just impose disbelief on almost everyone. Obviously the US has been having many problems of its own in this regard, and in the stories that come from Southern Europe in terms of the treatment of refugees there, it's pretty appalling as well. And I wonder how this idea of belief, you're talking about it, of the need to have an open heart, and to continually interrogate your own feelings about something in order to approach what you should or shouldn't be believing. How that collides with a political culture and an institutional culture that is almost perversely refusing to believe people. How do you encourage people to sort of open their hearts at a time when there seems to
Yeah.
be an epidemic of closed-heartedness?
I mean, I think one problem is that there's such a disconnect between people and what goes on in their hearts and how our institutions function. I mean, a lot of refugees talk about being in an asylum interview or dealing with asylum officers, and they use the word robotic. They are robots. Like, they're not listening to me. They're ticking off a list, or they're and that is that is because the systems are already designed in such a way, you know just not to kind of be this organic way of like people believing or disbelieving, people connecting with each other, saving someone who is, who has need, giving them the things that they need. I mean, these organizations all started because at some point people got together and thought, we need this in our society. We need a kind of a mechanism to protect human rights, a way to save people from other countries who are in danger, a way to give housing to the poor, a way to provide food, these kind of things. But now I guess some of them have grown bureaucratic and faceless, and they've been designed in such a way that they protect people. They protect, I guess, the current the whatever the priorities of the current government are. So in the case of the asylum office in the UK asylum system, it's designed in a way to reject as many people as possible. You have to tell a story with no inconsistency that fits into a particular set of parameters for what a refugee is, and you have to have proof and all kinds of things. And representation is highly correlated with whether or not you get through. So the system is created not to hear a person's story and to ascertain its truth, or whether or not that person is in danger in any other way that they may not even be aware of. It is simply like almost a computerized checklist of consistency and and all that. So that right there is a disconnect. I mean, in order to justify that politically, I think there's a lot of rhetoric that appeals to our fears, that appeals to kind of our fear of the unknown, of collective masses of people who are kind of dehumanized, and we don't really know what they might do and what they might want, but we make them, unfamiliar, I guess, in our imagination. But let's say people did change their minds slowly and, begin to, I suppose, see all the similarities between us and them, and kind of be more empathetic and listen to the stories. That still wouldn't change the way our institutions are made. And that is a much more long run problem, I think. Just because, even if you have the most sympathetic asylum officer sitting there, that asylum officer still has incentives that are connected to their pay. They have incentives that are connected with, how they're evaluated and all that stuff. And that stuff is systematic. It's not about that particular person's humanity.